The NBA trade deadline is nearly here, and perhaps the reason why the Raptors haven't done anything as of yet is they're waiting to make a huge move in the final hours, and we'll break down what that trade could look like in today's video. Let's get into it. This is Amateur Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content in videos and in live streams. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video along the way and subscribe to the channel for more content just like it. And reminder, I'll be live during the NBA trade deadline, 2 hours before up until an hour or two after as well, breaking down everything that happens in real time and recapping the day as well, especially focusing on, of course, the Toronto Raptors. Hit the notification bell so you never miss out on any content, and let's jump into it. At the time this video comes out, hopefully, and the time it takes me to edit, nothing happens that nullifies the purpose of this video here. But by the time this comes out, the NBA trade deadline is essentially 24 hours away, and we have yet to see the Raptors make any move of significance here. But we talked yesterday in the video about what the Raptors could do as far as selling is concerned and going towards the tank. Well, what if Masai Ujiri does go in the other direction and think that this is a time for the Raptors to be buyers? Not necessarily looking at his team and thinking like, hey, this is a really good team. Like, we need to push as much as possible to make the play-in tournament. But perhaps Masai Ujiri sees opportunities here with the players available in market to cut a really good deal. A deal that is too good to pass up, and so good of a deal that the Raptors will ignore tanking for the likes of potentially Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, or Dylan Harper to pursue that big fish. Perhaps that big fish is going to be a player like Brandon Ingram. There have been offers. There has been interest in a multitude of Raptors players, specifically guys like Chris Boucher, and a recent report suggests that, yes, the Raptors are hunting some big game here. Prior to the Clippers trading PJ Tucker to the Jazz, the Clippers offered something for Chris Boucher, but Toronto remains fixated on being involved in larger deals and is in the work with a few teams on trades before Thursday. That comes from Brett Siegel, courtesy of some Clutch Point sources. Decent source here. Like, clearly there is some information out there in regards to the Raptors looking for a big trade here. Masai Ujiri is not one typically to settle. Masai Ujiri is one to prolong these sorts of trades and prolong things to really get the best deal possible, and he will wait to the final hour to make that possible. Perhaps he's waiting on some teams to loosen up their grip on players. Perhaps he's waiting for a little bit more desperation to sit in. But again, the player that they're really looking at here is reportedly Brandon Ingram. Reports coming from Jake Fisher, who has turned into a relatively reliable source for Raptors news, has said that the Toronto Raptors' interest in Brandon Ingram is real. They are seriously interested in bringing in the player. And this is one of those Masai Ujiri moves that he sees the Raptors paying less than they really should for a player of Brandon Ingram's quality. Now, for me as well, the tank is something that I am in support of. I'm supportive of getting the best possible draft pick for this season. I think we're in too big of a hole to really make any sort of playoff push. But as I said in a video I did last week talking about this situation, just to give some updates on that, you can get Brandon Ingram, who is injured and is still injured, and you can still commit to tanking. I mean, you could give a decent player in return and shed some salary, some long-term salary, and use those funds allocated instead to paying Brandon Ingram in the summer. He's going to be looking for a max contract. So the Raptors have to decide if giving away a small package for a player of Brandon Ingram's quality is worth it, not only to potentially sacrifice tanking for the rest of the season, but also you have to pay Brandon Ingram. Like, you have to pay Brandon Ingram. You're not trading Brandon Ingram for a rental here. His contract is up at the end of the season. You are trading for Brandon Ingram with the mindset that you, at the end of the season, are going to be giving him that big contract, likely a max contract. There's also conversations that Andrew Wiggins could be involved in a deal heading over to the Raptors, but ultimately, like, big trades are, like, seemingly could be on the cards. Like, Jimmy Butler could be on the move. Brandon Ingram could be on the move. Maybe it's the Raptors. Maybe it is elsewhere. Kevin Durant, all of a sudden, could be on the move. And the expectation starting to become that Kevin Durant will be on the move ahead of the deadline. So in all of these trades here, with the aprons, with salary caps, with the second apron, everything, with everything going around and these constraints towards salaries, the Raptors could be looking to land a good player for a cheap trade, like we talked about Brandon Ingram. What could it be? It could be RJ Barrett, and it could be no first-round picks, like maybe it's 2 seconds. It could be maybe just salary and Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher and the Indiana pick for next year. Like, if you can get Brandon Ingram for no players of real value and a first, that's a good deal. Whether you like the idea of tanking or not for the rest of the season, like, you are getting Brandon Ingram, a good player, on a cut price deal. If you're trading RJ Barrett, you're replacing Barrett for Ingram. I would say Ingram is the better player. You have to obviously pay him a lot more, which you have to decide is if it is justifiable. That is certainly a debate, but like, that's definitely an interesting one for the Raptors to consider. So even like, they could go in that direction, get one of these star players at a cut price relative to what you should be trading to get a player of that ability, or they could go in a different direction and be the team that absorbs assets in the trade. Like, you look at the Utah Jazz in the 3-team deal between the Lakers and Dallas, the Luka Doncic trade. Like, Utah basically, just as a dumping ground, got 2 second-round picks and like a decent young player in Jalen Hood-Schifino. So there are a lot of different ways in which the Raptors can insert themselves into this trade deadline. And again, like, it's just bringing back assets to the team, and it's maximizing value for assets. That's kind of what Masai Ujiri seems to be looking for here. He is looking to find the cut price deal for a star. Like every time we ever see a star player become available, there's almost always a report that the Raptors have reached out. The Raptors are interested. And it's always seemingly Masai Ujiri making the phone call just to see if he can cut a deal. And I think that's what we have in this scenario here. So the Raptors have been very patient and are, in a calculated way, waiting for their opportunity to strike. But alongside that calculation, like, there is risk involved. There is risk that, you know, things don't materialize in your favor and you kind of run out of options. But over the last few years, like, covering this team at the trade deadline, it's pretty typical for the Raptors to get their stuff done early. Not like days in advance. Clearly, at the time of recording, the trade deadline is tomorrow. But it's typical for the Raptors to get their things in order the night before the trade deadline or the morning of their trade deadline, and then are happy to sit back for the rest of the day and watch the chaos. We've seen, like, I remember the year they were tanking in Tampa. They traded Norman Powell in the morning. We waited all day for them to trade Kyle Lowry. That didn't end up happening. The year they traded for Jakob Poeltl a couple years ago now, they get the Jakob Poeltl deal done like at night / in the morning, very early morning, and do nothing for the rest of the day. They usually have stuff taken care of earlier on. Maybe things will be different this season. I don't know. That's just seemingly the trend with Masai Ujiri, but certainly they have their hands. What's the metaphor? Hands in a lot of different pots here, whatever it is. You know, they are making sure they're spread around and not all of their marbles or not all of their eggs are in the same basket. I mix of metaphors, but they're making sure they're on top of a lot of different things, and they're going to see what is best for the team. Again, my vote of support is towards tanking, but like, if you can get Brandon Ingram and you're not giving away much to do it, it might be worth the Raptors considering. And perhaps even if you do get Brandon Ingram, you can still tank for the rest of the season. And then when you're ready to start trying again next year, you've got Brandon Ingram, maybe making a lot of money, but it's certainly an intriguing prospect for this Toronto Raptors team to take on. So something big could absolutely be in the works. I don't know what I really don't know what we're going to see. Like, there are so many different directions the Raptors could be going, but definitely they are preparing to do something big. Will it get executed? We will see. And we will see live together, hopefully tomorrow, as I'm live from about 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern time, somewhere in that range. I might start a little bit later, end a little bit earlier, but I'll be live covering the main portions, the bulk, right at the end of the NBA trade deadline and the recap of it all, live on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed and you have the notification bell turned on so you don't miss that. Drop a like if you did enjoy this video, and hopefully I do see you again soon for some more content breaking down the NBA trade deadline and whoever the Raptors may have acquired.